was that as part of what his philosophy was? He said, though, later, he said, if we stepped in to help, GM would be, and I quote, the living dead. I didn't hear him say that again. What they didn't say is the auto companies, Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, have committed to invest another $23 billion in expansion of new plant and equipment. And by the way, they're not doing it the Bain way, not in Mexico, not in China, not in Vietnam. They're investing $28 billion in the United States of America. And folks, let me tell you, you got it, man. I tell you what, and know what was most amazing during the convention? They discovered the middle class. Well, wasn't that amazing? They discovered the middle class. Listen to what they said. Congressman Ryan, what he said in his convention, he said, quote, the truest measure of any society is how it treats those who cannot defend or care for themselves, end of quote. That's what he said. So let's look about how they measure this society. Let's look at what he and Governor Romney want to do. And the best way to do that is the way my dad used to say. He'd say, when someone would tell, let me tell you what I value, let me tell you what I care about, my dad would say, don't tell me what you value or what you care about. Show me your budget. I'll tell you what you value and what you care about. Let's look at what they value. Let's look at their budget. Massive cuts in Medicaid, throwing 19 million people off of health care, including 1 million seniors and millions of children. Giving seniors a stipend in Medicare, giving them a stipend, a voucher, worth less than the Medicare they now have, to allow them to go out and shop for insurance to get the best deal they can find. Massive cuts in Social Security for future generations. Make massive cuts to early education. Kick 200,000 kids from working class families out of Head Start in early education. Cut $4.9 billion in elementary and secondary education. Now, this is the budget. They knocked 6.6 million young adults off their parents' health care coverage, as you heard what is happening in most families, including the beautiful woman who introduced me. They put insurance companies back in charge of your health care. No, they do. No, seriously. You eliminate them, they put them back in charge of your health care, allowing them to cut off your coverage when you get sick, or when you hit a limit, which they call your limit, usually at the very most critical time of the expensive care you need as you're fighting to stay alive or keep your parents alive. Allowing them to charge, once again, a different insurance rates for a woman than a man. So much for helping qualified kids from working class families. Look what they do. They cut the Pell Grants. They cut Pell Grants and eliminate tax credits that many of you parents are able to take now to help send your kids to college. They eliminate them. You know, I'd like to change the quote of my distinguished colleague, Congressman Ryan. I think the truest measure of a political party is how it treats those who cannot defend or care for themselves. And ladies and gentlemen, by that standard, it's no contest here. Folks, this is not your father's Republican Party. This is not. So seriously, I worked a long, long time over the years with some really stand-up Republicans who had disagreements with us, but not like this. The Bob Doles, the Howard Bakers, the so many people who I work with. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not even Mitt Romney's father's Republican Party. And folks, when you press them, when you take a look at why they're doing all the things I mentioned, why is it? Well, folks, they're doing it in the service of massive tax cuts to the very wealthy. Because if they do not provide those, if they were not to make all those draconian cuts I mentioned here for middle class and working class people, it would balloon the deficit out of all proportion, and it would even raise taxes for middle class folks higher than they're going to raise them now. Let me give you an example. And I don't want to keep you a long time, but just give you one example. Actually, I'll give you two examples. Of that tax cut, for the, quote, top 2% that Governor Romney insists and Governor Ryan and the entire Republican Party to a person, I think, say they have to keep. Of that tax cut, $800 billion of it, it's cost $1 trillion over 10 years. $800 billion goes to people who make a minimum of $1 million. Now, of that, now this is the truth. The press is here. All the national presses follow me. Everybody can fact check this. Of that $1 trillion tax cut they want to keep, $500 billion of it goes to only 120,000 families. That's the God's truth. 120. I'm sure they're patriotic, decent Americans, but I am also sure that they sure don't need another $500 billion tax cut. And folks, to quote President Clinton, these guys are Bush on steroids, because here's what they want to do. On top of maintaining that tax cut, it's the truth, they want to add another $250,000 a year tax cut for everyone making over $1 million. So you wonder why they're eviscerating the middle class. And this has a giant price tag, not only for the deficit. The nonpartisan group, there's a group called the Tax Policy Center. It's nonpartisan. It took all their data and it examined it. And here's the conclusion the nonpartisan tax policy group reached: that middle-class families with children, as a consequence of their Republican tax policy, would have their taxes increase $2,000 a year. Now, guys, forget about, sort of campaign lines. How can that be fair? How can it possibly be fair to raise the taxes for middle-class families with children by $2,000 and give a $500 billion tax cut to 120,000 families? Folks, on top of that, Governor Romney says in the first 100 days he'd repeal the Wall Street reforms. He'd let the banks once again write their own rules. And listen to what he says about foreign policy. You caught some of it in his speech. He said it was a mistake to end the war in Iraq and bring all of our warriors home. He said it was a mistake to set an end date for our warriors in Afghanistan and bring them home. He implies by the speech that he's ready to go to war in Syria and Iran. He wants to move from cooperation to confrontation with Putin's Russia. And these guys say the president's out of touch? Out of touch? Swiss bank account, untold millions in the Cayman Islands? Who's out of touch, man? Look, he's a good family man, but that's a man out of touch. This is no time to turn back. We have to continue to move forward. Folks, I am absolutely certain, there's not a single doubt in my mind that we're on the way to rebuilding this country stronger than it was before. I'm absolutely certain we're on our way to rebuilding the middle class more vibrant than it was before. And the reason I'm certain is because I know you. I know you. given a half a chance. The American people have never, never, ever let their country down. Never. Barack and I believe in you. Ordinary Americans, we believe in you. And guess what? It's never, never, never been a good bet to bet against America. Never, never, never. So, ladies and gentlemen, join us. Help us finish what we started. And with your help, we'll win Pennsylvania and we'll win this election. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you. Thank you.